Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes, and it is only Wednesday. We are now smack in the middle of what has already been by far the worst week yet for the Trump administration, one that brought us first the resignation of National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, and then just this afternoon, the withdrawal of Labor Secretary nominee Andy Puzder, which we'll discuss shortly. But we begin tonight with revelations that have some raising the specter of Watergate. New details about alleged contacts during the presidential campaign between Trump campaign aides and senior Russian intelligence officials. As I said last night on this program, the most potentially explosive allegation against this administration is that it colluded with the Russians in an effort to boost Trump's chances to become president. It's a very serious charge, and it's important to note that as of now, there is no direct evidence to substantiate it. At this point, both NBC and The Times reporting has found no evidence of collusion. However, with each new revelation, the questions only get louder. Last night, shortly after we went off the air, the New York Times, citing 4 current and former American officials, reported that phone records and intercepted calls show that members of Trump's campaign and other Trump associates had repeated contacts with senior Russian intelligence officials in the year before the election. Today, CNN, also citing multiple officials, reported Trump aides were in, and I'm quoting here, constant touch with senior Russian officials during the campaign. Now, shortly after the election, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said there were contacts between the Russians and the Trump team, adding, obviously, we know most of the people from his entourage. The Trump campaign and now Trump administration has long and strenuously disputed that very claim.
Today, can you still say definitively that nobody on the Trump campaign, not even General Flynn, had any contact with the Russians before the election?
I don't have any. There's nothing that would conclude me that anything different has changed with respect to that time period.
Among those who allegedly spoke to the Russians during the campaign was Flynn, who the White House said yesterday was asked to resign not because of improper contact with the Russians, but because he had lied about it. Today, however, Flynn's ex-boss found someone else to blame.
General Flynn is a wonderful man. I think he's been treated very, very unfairly by the media, as I call it, the fake media in many cases. And I think it's really a sad thing that he was treated so badly.
Of course, that's the president who fired him and demanded his resignation. Now, in the orbit of President Trump, there are few people more controversial than one Roger Stone. He is a former Trump campaign advisor who we stopped inviting on this very network because of numerous incredibly offensive, bigoted, and objectionable tweets. Tonight, however, Stone is, once again, the middle of the news. Because according to the New York Times story, the FBI has examined 4 people regarding the Trump campaign's Russia ties. Former Trump advisor Carter Page, former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn, and yes, Roger Stone. So today, I sat down for an interview with Stone, a principal in the story, and I started by asking him to characterize his relationship with the president.
Friend of Trump, FOT, and obviously supporter in the most recent presidential campaign.
Do you call him? Do you have his phone number? Have you been talking since he's become the president?
We speak from time to time, but I consider those conversations to be privileged, and I'm not prepared to disclose the content. You know, I have great affection for Donald Trump and his family. We've been friends for 40 years. I wanted him to run for president in 2012, as early as 2000.
And you sort of started in a formal role in the campaign and quickly left the formal role and became kind of an informal advisor and had contact with him throughout the campaign.
That is correct.
So I wanted to talk to you today because your name appears in this New York Times story, and I should be very clear about how it appears, because you are not named as one of the people about whom intelligence officials are saying was caught on bugged calls, essentially talking to senior Russian intelligence officials, but as someone who had reportedly been investigated for that before. So I want to ask you directly if you had contacts with Russian nationals during the campaign.
Well, first of all, I appreciate your having me here today to clear this up. The answer, Chris, is categorically no. I have had no contacts from Russians or intermediaries for Russians. I have no Russian clients, no Russian communications. In all honesty, I have never been informed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation that I was under investigation. This is a canard. I write about this extensively in my new book. I told the New York Times this, but it is curious to me that yesterday's Times story seems to be almost a total recycle of a story that was written on January 20th. The same three names, the same general allegation.
You know, it's interesting that you're categorical in this because Paul Manafort is on the record in that article in a kind of not categorical way. Very sort of tellingly says, I did not knowingly speak to any Russian intelligence officials. He also says it's not like these people wear badges that say, I'm a Russian intelligence officer. You're not saying that. You're saying something far more categorical. No Russian nationals, no intermediaries with Russian nationals, nothing kaput.
No Russian money, no Russian communications, period. I spoke to Paul Manafort last night. I prefer to look at the more adamant part of his statement. Now, is it possible that he spoke to someone without knowing they were a Russian agent? When you're the campaign manager for a candidate for president, you speak to a lot of people. But even in that case, he does not believe that is the case.
You just mentioned Paul Manafort. Are you friendly with him? Are you in communication with him regularly?
We were partners for almost 20 years. He was an usher at my wedding. Yes, we are very good friends.
And what about the recently fired or resigned General Flynn? Do you have a relationship with him?
I do not know General Flynn. I am an admirer of General Flynn. Based on what I've seen over the last 24 hours, he has broken no laws, but laws were broken by those who disclosed government wiretaps or eavesdropping on a U.S. citizen, in this case, a government official. As you know, Chris, that's very, very rare that the government even admits that that happens.
It's interesting you raise that because and I agree. I mean, it appears to be that is most likely the case, that there was there was a law broken in these leaks. I want to talk about the leaks during the campaign because, of course, the nexus of all this, and I think that in some ways the origin of, quote, the Russia story has to do with the WikiLeaks. And it has to do with the fact that it is the conclusion of the intelligence agencies that those leaks emanated from hacks of email accounts by Russian intelligence. You said during the campaign you have a back channel to Julian Assange, that you were in regular communication with Assange through an intermediary. Is that right?
Well, it's a little overstatement. What I said was that there was an intermediary in the sense that we have a common friend who communicated with Assange and communicated with me. And what he told me was that WikiLeaks was in possession of extraordinary information about Hillary Clinton that would rock her campaign and roil the race, and that they would begin releasing this in October. That is the total extent of what I know. No specifics beyond that. And, of course, both those things turned out to be true. The intermediary in this case is someone who is in the media, and I'm not going to disclose their name because I don't want to cost them their job.
You said that was the sum total of what you knew, but you did have this sort of remarkably prophetic tweet on August 21st. You said, trust me, it will soon be Podesta's time in the barrel. This is, we should note that's a full 2 months or 6 weeks before Podesta's emails start being disclosed. Did you know at that point that Podesta had been hacked?
No, I refer very specifically to a piece based on my own research regarding John Podesta and money laundering by the Russian mob for the Clinton Foundation, which is posted at my website, Stone Cold Truth. None of that information, by the way, is reflected in the subsequent WikiLeaks disclosures.
That was not a reference to you having advanced knowledge that WikiLeaks had acquired essentially the entirety of the inbox of John Podesta.
That is correct. I had no knowledge of that, and I learned it when they disclosed it like everyone else.
And then this other tweet, which was October 2nd, you said, Wednesday, Hillary Clinton is done, #WikiLeaks. Now, that was a little far in advance of what ended up happening. I believe the disclosures start on October 8th, if I'm not mistaken. Was that because you knew that the documents were about to be released?
On October 5th, Julian Assange held a press event in which he announced that he would begin disclosures for 10 weeks at the beginning of every week. And, of course, the following week on the 8th, those disclosures began. again, I make reference to what I said previously. I was told he had information that was unspecified political dynamite, and that he would begin releasing it in October. Those things turned out to be true.
You're a notable fan of Richard Nixon. In fact, you have the man's face tattooed on your back, if I'm not mistaken. What do you think Richard Nixon would be making of all this?
Well, he would be very angry about the leaks,
He sure would
particularly
be.
if they were leaks from his own White House. I mean, look, you know that I've written a book on Richard Nixon. He was both very great and very flawed. He achieved many great things for peace, and he made egregious mistakes. My admiration of him has to do with his resilience. The tattoo is a daily reminder that in life, when you get knocked down, when things don't go your way, when you're defeated, you got to get up and fight again. It's simply that.
Final question here. Have you spoken to the president since he's been the president, while he's in the White House?
I have, but again, I'm not prepared to disclose the contents of that conversation.
Sure.
Honestly, it's not all that momentous. I called to congratulate him. He was very gracious.
All right, Roger Stone, I appreciate your time tonight, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you much for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.